The marble halls of the Galactic Council chamber had never felt so cold. Admiral Thex stood before the gathered representatives of over 50 alien species, his blue scales dulled by the harsh light from above. His four hands gripped the speaking podium as he delivered news that made even the bravest council members tremble. "The machine race has taken 3 more systems," he said, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "Our best ships and weapons do nothing against them. At this rate, they will reach the core worlds in less than 6 months." The chamber erupted in panic. Some representatives floated in their anti-gravity seats, others slithered or crawled in their species-specific areas. All of them spoke at once, creating a chaos of alien languages that the universal translators barely kept up with. Silence. The council leader's voice boomed through the chamber. The ancient being, looking like a cross between an earth jellyfish and a crystal formation, pulsed with red light. "Admiral Thex, you mentioned a solution in your report, though you marked it as controversial." Thex took a deep breath, knowing his next words would cause an even bigger uproar. "Yes, Council Leader, I propose we contact the humans." The silence that followed was deeper than space itself. Then, predictably, the chaos returned tenfold. The Deathworlders. They're savages. Their planet is a death trap. They eat actual dead matter. The Council Leader's light pulsed again, restoring order. "Admiral, Earth was classified as a death world for good reasons. The gravity alone would crush most of our species, not to mention the extreme temperature ranges, aggressive wildlife, and the humans themselves." "Exactly," Thex said, bringing up a holographic display. "What we see as horrifying survival traits might be exactly what we need." The display showed footage from Earth's history, wars, survival stories, and athletic achievements that made many council members look away in horror. These beings evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. Thex continued. "They fought predators that would hunt our strongest warriors for sport. They survived in temperatures that would freeze or boil most of us. And most importantly, they never stopped fighting." The display changed to show human military history. "Look at how they fight. When they can't overpower an enemy, they outthink them. When they can't outthink them, they adapt. When adapting isn't enough, they completely change the rules of engagement." A small, insect-like representative buzzed forward. "But they're primitive. They've barely mastered basic space travel. The machine race has technology far beyond theirs." Thex smiled, showing teeth that would have been threatening if the council wasn't used to him. "That's another advantage. The machines predict our moves because they understand our technology, our tactics. Humans still used physical projectile weapons alongside energy weapons. They practice hand-to-hand combat in an age of drone warfare. They're unpredictable because they never fully abandon old methods when they develop new ones." The council leader's crystalline form sparkled thoughtfully. "You've studied them extensively, Admiral." "I have. I've watched their entertainment broadcasts, studied their military history, analyzed their sports competitions. They turn everything into a contest, even their leisure activities. They deliberately seek out challenge and conflict, not just for survival, but for fun." The chamber grew quiet as the implications sank in. The council leader drifted closer to the podium. "And you believe they would help us?" "Their history shows a pattern. Despite their violent capabilities, humans often fight hardest to protect others. They've developed entire military doctrines around protecting civilian populations. They call it humanitarian intervention." Thex paused. "Also, the machine race will eventually reach Earth. Humans understand the concept of fighting fire with fire." A reptilian representative stepped forward. "Even if we agree to this madness, how do we approach them?" "The quarantine. Beacons around their solar system were placed there for a reason." "We be honest," Thex said simply. "We tell them everything. About the classification of their world, about the quarantine, about the machine race. Then we ask for their help, as equals." The council leader's light dimmed to a thoughtful blue. "The humans might react badly. to learning they've been quarantined. They might, Thex agreed, but they also value directness and honesty. In their culture, coming clean about past mistakes often leads to forgiveness, especially when accompanied by a genuine request for help. Hours passed as the council debated. Thex stood patiently, answering questions, showing more footage, explaining human concepts that seemed bizarre to the gathered representatives. Finally, the council leader moved to the center of the chamber. "We will vote," they announced. "The motion is to remove the quarantine beacons, make official first contact with Earth, and request human assistance against the machine race. Cast your votes now." Thex watched as lights began appearing above each representative. Green for approval, red for rejection. The count was close, terrifyingly close. Then, just as the voting period was about to end, the chamber's main screen lit up with urgent news. The machine race had just destroyed another system. The footage showed their ships, black and angular, cutting through the best defenses the council races could devise like they weren't even there. In the background, civilian transport ships desperately tried to escape, but the machines showed no mercy. The remaining votes turned green almost instantly. Motion passed. The council leader announced, their voice heavy with both hope and fear. "Admiral Thex, assemble your first contact team. Choose carefully. Everything may depend on this initial meeting." As Thex left the chamber, he heard the representatives already arguing about the details, how to approach Earth, what to offer, how to explain everything. But his mind was already working on the bigger challenge. He had studied humans extensively, yes, but studying them from afar and actually meeting them were very different things. These beings had evolved on a world that would kill most council races within minutes. Their bodies could process poisons for entertainment. They routinely engaged in activities that simulated combat or death-defying scenarios just for fun. And now the fate of the galaxy might rest on convincing them to fight alongside races that had kept them quarantined for centuries. Thex smiled again, wider this time. If nothing else, it would be interesting. And if there was one thing he had learned about humans from all his research, it was that they lived for interesting times. As he boarded his ship, he began composing the first contact message. It needed to be direct, honest, and appeal to both human logic and emotion. The fate of every species in the council chamber, and countless others throughout the galaxy, might depend on getting these next words exactly right. The message would change history, one way or another. Thex just hoped it would change it in the right direction. To the leaders of Earth, he began typing, "We need your help." Part 2. First Contact Admiral Jack Stone stood at the window of Earth's orbital command station, watching the alien ship approach. It looked nothing like the sci-fi movies he'd grown up with. Instead of sleek metal, it seemed to be made of crystalline structures that shifted colors in the starlight. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "they're requesting permission to dock." Their credentials matched the first contact message. Jack nodded, his weathered face reflecting in the reinforced glass. When the message had first arrived 3 days ago, most people thought it was a joke. Aliens asking for help. Earth, a death world. It seemed too strange to be real. But here they were. "Grant them permission," he said. "Make sure the gravity in the diplomatic section is set to their specifications, and remind all personnel, no sudden movements." The alien ship docked with a grace that impressed even Jack's experienced eye. He headed to the meeting room, where representatives from Earth's major military powers waited. The room had been specially prepared, one side with standard Earth gravity for the humans, the other with reduced gravity for their visitors. The alien delegation entered, and Jack had to force himself not to stare. Admiral Thex led them, his blue scales and 4 arms exactly as described in the briefing. Behind him came beings that looked like they'd stepped out of Earth's wildest nature documentaries, some floating, others moving on multiple legs, one that seemed to be made entirely of crystalline formations. "Admiral Stone," Thex said through his translator, his voice surprisingly warm. "Thank you for receiving us, Admiral Thex," Jack replied, keeping his voice steady. "Welcome to Earth Station 1. The initial pleasantries went smoothly, but Jack could see the aliens' discomfort. They kept glancing at the human side of the room, where the Earth normal gravity would have crushed them. "Perhaps," Jack said, "we should address the elephant in the room. You classified our world as a death trap." Thex's scales shifted color slightly. "Yes. When our first probes reached your solar system centuries ago, we found your planet's conditions extreme. The gravity alone would kill most spacefaring species. Then we saw your wildlife. Predators that hunt in packs, insects that inject venom, plants that cause chemical burns. And your species." He paused. "You not only survived there, you thrived." One of the human generals spoke up. "So you quarantined us, kept us isolated." "We were afraid," the crystalline alien admitted, its form sparkling as it spoke. "Your entertainment broadcasts showed you constantly simulating combat. Your sports involved deliberate physical collision. You consumed substances that would poison us for pleasure." Jack couldn't help but smile. Coffee isn't that bad once you get used to it. The joke seemed to break some tension. Thex moved forward, activating a holographic display. "This is why we're here." The images showed the machine race in action. Jack watched intently as black ships cut through alien defenses, their weapons unlike anything he'd seen before. The aliens' technology was clearly advanced, but their tactics. "Your ships are too orderly," he said. "Too predictable. These machines are running combat algorithms, and you're fighting exactly how they expect you to fight." Thex's scales brightened. "Exactly. We've become too dependent on optimal patterns, on perfect formations. The machines predict every move because we always make the mathematically correct choice. And you think we can help because we're unpredictable." "Because you're survivors," Thex corrected. "You don't just use technology. You adapt it, combine it with older methods, create new solutions. When something doesn't work, you try something else." "Anything else?" Jack turned to his staff. "Show them the Montana exercise." The room's display changed to show footage from a recent military exercise. Tanks rolling through snow, infantry using terrain for cover, drones providing support while staying hidden in weather patterns. Nothing special by Earth standards, but the aliens watched in fascination. "You still use ground vehicles, physical projectile weapons." The crystalline being sparkled rapidly. "And your soldiers, they're moving through that cold without environmental suits." "That's mild weather for Montana," Jack said. "But yes, we find older tech still has its uses. Sometimes the simplest solution works best." "Fascinating," Thex said. "This is exactly what we need. Not just your technology, but your way of thinking. Your humanity." Jack studied the footage of the machine race again. Their ships were impressive, but they moved with an artificial perfection that any human commander would recognize as a weakness. Too perfect, too predictable. "If we agree to help," he said carefully, "we'd need full access to your technical data. Joint training programs. Real integration, not just humans following alien orders." "Of course," Thex agreed quickly. "We're not looking for subordinates, Admiral Stone. We're looking for partners, teachers even." The room grew quiet as Jack considered. The aliens were offering advanced technology, faster than light travel, access to the galaxy. But they were also asking Earth to join a war against an enemy that had already defeated multiple advanced civilizations. "There's an old human saying," Jack finally said. "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." These machines would eventually find Earth anyway, wouldn't they? Thex's scales darkened. "Yes, their expansion is systematic. Even without our intervention, they would reach Earth within 50 years. Jack nodded, then turned to the gathered human leaders. They had already discussed this possibility, had plans prepared for first contact scenarios. But this was different. This wasn't just first contact. This was first alliance. One by one, they nodded. "Admiral Thex," Jack said, standing straight. "Humanity accepts your proposal. We'll need time to prepare, to adapt our forces for space combat. But we're in." The relief among the alien delegation was visible, even across species. Thex moved forward, extending his upper right hand in what was clearly a practiced gesture. Jack shook it firmly, but carefully, mindful of the alien's lighter gravity physiology. "Though I have to warn you, our methods might seem unusual to your people. Admiral Stone, unusual is exactly what we need right now." Thex's scales rippled with what humans would later learn was amusement. "Besides, we've studied your history. We know that humanity's unusual methods have accomplished the impossible before." As the two groups began discussing details, Jack looked out the window at the alien ship. Soon, human vessels would join it. Earth's best minds would combine their technology with alien advancements. Soldiers from a death world would train beings from across the galaxy. The machines had no idea what was coming. And somehow, Jack had a feeling that this was just the beginning of humanity's role in galactic affairs. After all, if there was one thing humans were good at, it was exceeding expectations, especially when everyone else said something was impossible. Part 3. Building the fleet commander Mike Ross watched as the alien crew struggled with the simple obstacle course. Even at 1/3 Earth gravity, they found the physical demands challenging. But that wasn't the real problem. "Stop," he called out. "You're still moving in formation. Spread out, use the terrain. Think like survivors, not soldiers." The alien troops, a mix of different species from across the galaxy, looked at him in confusion. A tall, insect-like being stepped forward. "But Commander, our tactical simulations show that maintaining formation provides optimal coverage." "Optimal is predictable," Mike said, jumping down from his observation platform. Despite the reduced gravity, he moved with practiced ease, and predictable gets you killed. He walked to a pile of rubble that was part of the training course. "Watch." Without warning, he dove behind the rubble, rolled, and came up firing his training weapon from an unexpected angle. The alien troops, still in their neat formation, would have all been hit in a real combat situation. See, the machines know every standard military formation in the galaxy. They've calculated every optimal response. We need to be unpredictable. In the observation booth above, Admiral Thex watched with Admiral Stone. "Your commander's methods are unorthodox," Thex said. Jack smiled. Mike was a survival instructor before this. Taught people how to stay alive in Earth's harshest environments. If anyone can teach your troops to think differently, it's him. Down in the training area, Mike was demonstrating another human tactic, using seemingly random movements to create patterns of chaos that actually provided better coverage than traditional formations. Slowly, the alien troops began to understand. "Good," Mike called out as a floating crystalline being used a piece of debris for cover, while providing support fire. "Now you're thinking." The integration wasn't just happening on the ground. In orbit, human engineers worked alongside alien technicians, combining technologies in ways neither side had considered before. The problem, a human engineer explained to her alien counterpart, is that your ships are too perfect. Every system optimized, every response calculated. The machines can predict exactly how you'll react because you always react the same way. The alien, a being that looked like a cross between an octopus and a cloud of gas, rippled in confusion. But optimization increases efficiency, reduces waste. Sometimes you need waste, the engineer said. She pulled up designs for Earth's naval vessels. "Look at our ships. Multiple redundant systems, backup plans for backup plans. Not efficient, but hard to completely disable. We call it damage tolerance." In another part of the station, weapons specialists from both sides were having a similar discussion. Physical projectiles. A multi-limbed alien weapons expert examined a human railgun with a mix of horror and fascination. In an age of energy weapons can be deflected, absorbed, or redirected, the human weapons officer explained. But mass always has an impact. Newton's laws work everywhere. The alien considered this. The machines would not expect such primitive weapons. Exactly. And that's just the start. We're working on combining your energy weapon technology with our projectile systems. Imagine a railgun shooting plasma-enhanced rounds. Day by day, the integration continued. Humans learned to operate alien technology while teaching their new allies the art of unconventional warfare. Ships were modified, tactics were developed, and slowly, a new kind of fleet began to take shape. But it wasn't always smooth sailing. You want us to do what? An alien commander's scales had turned almost white with shock. Mike demonstrated the maneuver again. It's called playing dead. You cut all non-essential systems, drift like debris, then power up and attack when the enemy least expects it. But that's not honorable combat. Honor doesn't matter if you're dead, Mike said bluntly. The machines don't care about honor. They care about efficiency, about patterns. Break the patterns, survive, win. That's what matters. In the ship modification yards, similar cultural clashes occurred. Alien engineers were horrified by human suggestions to add intentional vulnerabilities to their ships, systems designed to fail in specific ways, channeling damage away from critical components. Your ships are too perfect, a human engineer explained again and again. When they take damage, they fail completely. Our ships are designed to fail gradually, to stay functional even when heavily damaged. Slowly, understanding grew on both sides. The aliens began to see the wisdom in human inefficiency, while humans learned to integrate alien technology in ways that maintained unpredictability while increasing capability. Admiral Stone watched it all from his office, reading reports and watching training footage. The combined fleet was taking shape, but would it be ready in time? The machine race was still advancing, still consuming worlds. Interesting report from the training grounds, Fex said, entering the office. Your Commander Ross had our troops deliberately practicing failed maneuvers today. Learning from failure is a human specialty, Jack replied. Sometimes you have to know how something breaks to know how to use it. My species would never have thought of that, Fex admitted. We simulate success, plan for perfection. The idea of deliberately practicing failure is exactly why you called us, Jack finished. The machines expect perfection because that's what they've always faced. They won't expect an enemy that turns failure into an advantage. Vex's scales shifted, and what Jack had learned was agreement. The first joint fleet exercise is scheduled for tomorrow. Will we be ready? Jack looked at the latest intelligence reports. The machine race had taken another system, but their advance had slowed. They seemed to be trying to analyze the sudden withdrawal of several alien fleets that were now training with humans. We'll find out, he said. But one thing I've learned about humans and aliens working together, we're both capable of more than we think. As if to prove his point, an alert came in from the training grounds. Mike's alien troops had just set a new record on the obstacle course, not by following human tactics exactly, but by combining their natural abilities with human improvisation. See, Jack smiled. They're learning to be unpredictable. Vex watched the footage, his scales shifting to bright colors. Perhaps there's hope after all. There's always hope, Jack said. And if there's one thing humans are good at, it's turning hope into victory, even if we have to break a few rules of conventional warfare to do it. The next day, as the joint fleet prepared for its first exercise, Jack stood on his bridge and watched ships of human and alien design moving together. They didn't move in perfect formation. Their patterns seemed random, chaotic even, but there was purpose in that chaos, strength in that unpredictability. The machines might rule space through perfection, but they were about to learn that perfection wasn't everything. Sometimes, the best weapon was a little controlled chaos, And if there was one thing humans knew how to control, it was chaos. Part 4. Trial by Fire Lieutenant Anna Parker felt the tension on the bridge of the hybrid warship Thunderchild as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The black ships of the machine race filled the view screen. They were attacking the Proxima colony. "Battle stations," she ordered. "Remember your training. No patterns, no predictability." The Thunderchild was a perfect example of human-alien cooperation. Alien energy shields protecting a reinforced human hull. Traditional railguns alongside advanced plasma weapons. Its crew was mixed, each species bringing their unique strengths to the fight. "Multiple machine vessels approaching," reported the sensor officer, a crystalline being. "Their formation matches known attack patterns." "Perfect," Anna smiled. "Let's show them something new. Execute Chaos Protocol 1. The Thunderchild's engines cut out. The ship began to tumble, looking for all purposes like a crippled vessel. Around them, the rest of the human-alien fleet did the same, each ship falling into seemingly random trajectories. The machine ships moved in for the kill, their black hulls reflecting no light. Just as they entered optimal firing range, Anna gave the signal. Now, every dead ship burst to life. The Thunderchild's railguns fired first, launching projectiles enhanced with alien technology. The physical rounds, wrapped in energy fields that made them nearly invisible to sensors, struck the nearest machine ship before its predictive algorithms could respond. Direct hits. The weapons officer, a multi-limbed alien, reported with excitement. Their shields were not prepared for physical impacts. The machine fleet's perfect formation broke as it tried to adapt to this new threat. But the human-alien fleet was already changing tactics again. "Launch fighter screen," Anna ordered. "Random approach vectors, maximum chaos." Small craft poured from the larger ships, flying patterns that would have been considered suicidal in traditional space combat. But these pilots had trained under Commander Ross. They knew how to turn apparent chaos into an advantage. "The machines are adjusting their formation," the sensor officer reported. "They're trying to predict our pattern." "Good luck with that," Anna muttered. Then louder, "Signal the fleet. Begin Phase 2. The Thunderchild suddenly accelerated, its alien engines pushing it to speeds that would have torn apart a purely human vessel. But instead of firing at the machine ships, it aimed for the space between them. "They're targeting us," the defensive officer reported calmly. "Let them," Anna replied. "Execute the Ross maneuver." As energy beams from the machine ships converged on their position, the Thunderchild's hybrid systems performed a feat that violated several laws of conventional space combat. It deliberately overloaded its shield generators, creating a massive energy burst that not only deflected the incoming fire, but also scrambled nearby sensors. In the confusion, the rest of the fleet struck from multiple angles. Railguns fired their enhanced rounds, while energy weapons targeted the machines' now exposed weak points. Several black ships exploded silently in space, but the machines were learning. Their next volley was spread wider, less predictable. A human destroyer vanished in a ball of fire. "They're adapting," the sensor officer warned. "So are we," Anna responded. "Signal the fleet, scatter, and swarm. No ship follows the same path twice." The battle turned into a chaotic dance. Human ships used tactics from ancient naval warfare, adapted for three-dimensional space. Alien vessels contributed their advanced technology, but employed it in unpredictable ways they'd learned from their human allies. The machine fleet's perfect formations began to break down as their combat algorithms failed to predict the seemingly random movements of their opponents. Ships designed for mathematical warfare found themselves facing an enemy that refused to follow mathematical rules. "Their center formation is weakening," Anna observed. "They can't maintain optimal firing solutions if they can't predict our movements. Signal all ships, prepare for the hammer blow." The Thunderchild turned sharply, its human-designed hull creaking under forces it was never meant to endure. But it held together, just as its engineers had planned. Sometimes, being over-engineered was an advantage. Fire everything, Anna ordered. The ship's hybrid weapons unleashed their full power. Railguns launched their enhanced projectiles, while energy weapons fired at full capacity. The rest of the fleet did the same, creating a storm of destruction that overwhelmed the machine's defenses. When the energy dissipated, half the machine fleet was gone. The remaining ships began to retreat, their perfect formation now in shambles. "They're running," the weapons officer said in disbelief. "We actually drove them back." Anna allowed herself a small smile. "Send word to command. The Proxima colony is safe, and more importantly, the machines can be beaten." The victory had cost them. Several ships had been destroyed, and many more were damaged. But they had proved something vital. Human unpredictability combined with alien technology could defeat an enemy that relied on perfect prediction. Back at command, Admiral Stone and Admiral Thex reviewed the battle footage. "Remarkable," Thex said, his scales bright with excitement. "Lieutenant Parker's tactics violated every principle of space combat we've developed over centuries." "That's why they worked," Jack replied. "The machines learned to fight against your perfect formations. They weren't prepared for controlled chaos." "And the losses were expected," Jack said grimly. "Humans understand that sometimes you have to sacrifice pieces to win the game. The important thing is, we now know the machines can be beaten." Thex's scales shifted thoughtfully. "This will change everything. The other races will see that the machines aren't invincible, just predictable." Jack smiled. "And in war, being predictable is the worst thing you can be." On the Thunderchild, Anna watched her crew making repairs. Humans and aliens working together, each bringing their own strengths to the task. They had done more than win a battle. They had shown that the galaxy's different species could combine their abilities in ways no one had imagined. The machines might have perfect algorithms and superior technology, but they were about to learn that some things couldn't be predicted, couldn't be calculated. Sometimes, the best strategy was to break all the rules. And humans, as the galaxy was learning, were very good at breaking rules. Part 5. The breaking point Beta Centauri system burned. Captain Tom Wilson watched from the bridge of the destroyer Defiant as machine ships tore through the combined fleet's defenses. Their tactics, so effective just weeks ago, weren't working anymore. "They've adapted," his alien first officer said, crystal structure dimming with concern. "Every trick we used at Proxima. They learned from it," Tom finished. "That's the problem with fighting machines. They learn." The Defiant shuddered as another blast hit its shields. On the tactical display, Tom watched more Allied ships disappear, both human and alien vessels falling to the machine's new combat patterns. Multiple civilian transport ships detected, the sensor officer reported, still evacuating the colony. Tom studied the battlefield. The machines had changed their approach completely. Instead of perfect formations, they now moved in controlled chaos, mimicking the very tactics that had defeated them before. But they did it with mechanical precision, making their random movements deadlier than any human could manage. "They're not just learning our tactics," Tom realized. "They're perfecting them." A desperate call came through. "This is Transport Group 7. We have 2,000 civilians aboard. Our engines are failing. Request immediate assistance." Tom looked at his tactical display again. The civilian ships were trapped between the machine fleet and Beta Centauri's asteroid belt. The Defiant was one of the few combat vessels still in range to help. "All hands," he announced, "prepare for emergency maneuver. We're going to clear a path for those transports." His alien crew members, who had served with him for months now, didn't hesitate. They trusted their human captain, even when his plans seemed impossible. "Engineering," Tom called. "Remember those modifications we discussed? The ones everyone said were too dangerous." The chief engineer, a six-limbed being, clicked in acknowledgement. "The ones that could tear the ship apart." "Yes, Captain." Get them ready. We're going to need everything. The Defiant turned toward the civilian ships, its hybrid engines pushing it to dangerous speeds. The machine fleet noticed, adjusting their formation to intercept. They're predicting our course, the tactical officer warned. Good, Tom smiled grimly. Because we're not going to follow it. He opened a channel to the civilian ships. Transport Group 7, on my mark. I want you to cut all power. Let momentum carry you into the asteroid belt. The asteroid belt. The transport captain sounded shocked. We'll be torn apart. Trust me, Tom said. Better the asteroids than the machines. We'll clear you a path, but you have to be ready to move. The Defiant accelerated further, heading straight for the densest concentration of machine ships. At the last moment, Tom gave the order. Now, execute Wilson's gambit. The ship's engineers activated their dangerous modifications. The Defiant's power core began to overload, but instead of containing the energy, they channeled it through the ship's hybrid systems in a way that violated several laws of physics. The result was spectacular. The Defiant became a comet of pure energy, its human-built hull barely containing the power of its alien reactor. Machine ships scattered, their predictive algorithms unable to calculate a response to what appeared to be a suicide run. Transport Group, Tom called, his voice strained as the ship shuddered around him. Move now. These civilian ships cut power, drifting into the asteroid belt as the Defiant's energy wake cleared a path through the space debris. Machine ships trying to pursue found their sensors scrambled by the energy storm. Core containment failing, engineering reported. 2 minutes until total breach. Tom nodded. He'd known this would be a one-way trip. Get to the escape pods. All hands, abandon ship. His crew hesitated. The alien first officer's crystal structure pulsed with emotion. Captain. That's an order, Tom said firmly. The civilians need escort through the belt. Get to the pods, protect those ships. One by one, his crew complied. The escape pods launched, small but well-armed, vessels that could help guide the civilian ships to safety. Alone on the bridge, Tom turned the Defiant toward the largest concentration of machine ships. The power core was now a miniature sun, turning the ship into a weapon never meant to exist. Let's see you calculate this, he muttered. The Defiant exploded in a blast that rivaled Beta Centauri itself. The energy wave, contained and directed by the ship's hybrid systems until the very end, tore through the machine fleet like a scythe. Ships that survived found their systems scrambled, their perfect calculations disrupted by radiation no algorithm could have predicted. In the asteroid belt, the civilian ships emerged safely on the other side, protected by the escort of escape pods. The remaining machine ships, their formation broken and their tactical advantage lost, began to retreat. Hours later, at the Fleet Command Center, Admiral Stone received the full report. The Beta Centauri colony was lost, but most of its civilians had survived, thanks to one captain's sacrifice. The machines are learning too fast, Admiral Thex said, his scales dark with concern. They're taking our tactics, our unpredictability, and making it their own. Jack nodded grimly. That's what machines do. They learn, they adapt, they perfect. We need something new. But what? Thex asked. They've seen our chaos strategy now. They're ready for it. Jack thought about Tom Wilson's final gambit, how he turned his entire ship into a weapon in a way no engineer would have approved, no tactical manual would have suggested. Then we need to be more than just unpredictable, he said slowly. We need to be impossible. We need to do things that even we don't understand. Thex's scales shifted in confusion. What do you mean? The machines beat us by perfecting our tactics, so let's give them tactics they can't perfect. Let's do things that don't make sense, that violate every rule of combat we know. That's insane, Thex said. Jack smiled sadly. Exactly. And that's why it might work. Because if there's one thing machines can't replicate, it's human insanity. As the admirals began planning their new strategy, The story of the Defiant spread through both human and alien crews. It became more than just a tale of sacrifice. It became a symbol of what they were fighting for and what they were willing to do to win. The machines had learned to copy human unpredictability. Now it was time to show them something they could never copy: the human ability to do the impossible simply because no one said they could. Part 6. Evolution Commander Lisa Hart stood before the combined fleet's command staff, human and alien officers filling the briefing room. After the disaster at Beta Centauri, everyone knew they needed a new approach. "The machines have learned to copy our chaos," she began. "So we're going to teach them about something else from Earth's history: guerrilla warfare." She brought up historical images: ancient warriors hiding in jungles, resistance fighters striking from shadows, modern special forces using terrain and stealth. "We've been fighting the machines in open space, trying to beat them with unpredictable tactics, but they've adapted to that. Now we use the galaxy itself against them." The alien officers watched in fascination as she explained Earth's history of asymmetric warfare, how smaller, weaker forces had defeated larger, stronger ones by refusing to fight on their terms. "Space isn't empty," Lisa continued. "It has nebulae, asteroid fields, radiation zones, gravitational anomalies. We're going to use all of it." She displayed a new ship design, smaller than their current vessels, built for stealth and survival rather than direct combat. The Ghost class. Hybrid technology focused on stealth and survival. No more big fleet battles. We strike from hiding, disappear before they can respond. Admiral Thex's scales shifted thoughtfully. "Like the predators on your world." "Exactly," Lisa smiled. "We become space wolves, hunt in packs, strike the weak points, vanish into the terrain." The next weeks saw the combined fleet transform. The massive warships were broken down into smaller, deadlier units. Alien stealth technology merged with human hunting tactics. In the Orion Nebula, the first test began. A machine supply convoy moved through the dust clouds, their sensors struggling with the natural interference. "Coast Pack Alpha, in position," Lisa whispered from her command chair, though she knew the machines couldn't hear through space. Old habits died hard. Her ship, the Shadow Stalker, led 4 others, each crewed by both humans and aliens who'd embraced the new strategy. They'd spent days hiding in the nebula, power systems minimal, waiting like predators. "Remember," she said to her crew, "we're not trying to destroy them all. Hit and run. Make them fear the shadows." The machine convoy followed its perfect course, algorithms compensating for the nebula's interference. They never saw the attack coming. Ghost ships struck from 5 directions, their hybrid weapons optimized for quick, devastating hits. 2 supply ships exploded before the machines could respond. By the time they began to adapt, the ghost ships had vanished back into the nebula. The tactics spread. Across the galaxy, machine fleets found themselves hunted. Their supply lines were disrupted, their communications jammed, their perfect formations broken up by an enemy they couldn't predict or find. In a gas giant's atmosphere, ghost ships used the planet's magnetic fields to hide, striking when machine ships passed too close. In asteroid fields, human pilots used tricks learned from space miners, leading pursuers into deadly traps. "We're not just being unpredictable now," Lisa explained to her alien crew. "We're using their strength against them. They expect us to fight like a military force. Instead, we fight like survivors." The machines tried to adapt, but their algorithms couldn't cope with an enemy that refused to be found, let alone engage. They began traveling in larger groups, using more resources for protection, exactly what the Ghost Fleet wanted. "Look at their response," Lisa told the command staff in a later briefing. "They're clustering their forces, trying to protect everything, making themselves slower, less efficient." Admiral Stone nodded. "The more they try to protect, the fewer resources they have to expand. For the first time, we've stopped their advance." The alien officers were learning too. Species that had relied on technology and perfect tactics for millennia began to understand the value of stealth, of patience, of striking only when the moment was right. Like the tiny mammals that survived when the great reptiles died. An alien scientist observed, studying Earth's history, sometimes being small and adaptable is better than being powerful. But the greatest change was in how the combined fleet thought about space itself. No longer an empty void to cross, it became terrain to use. Every dust cloud could hide an ambush. Every radiation field could mask an approach. The machines see space as a mathematical grid. Lisa explained to a group of new ghost ship crews, "We need to see it as a hunting ground." In her quarters, Lisa studied reports from across the galaxy. Machine fleets were changing their patterns, becoming defensive rather than aggressive. Their perfect expansion had been disrupted by an enemy they couldn't calculate. They're learning fear, she realized. Not just adapting tactics, but actually becoming afraid of what might be hiding in the dark. It was a turning point. The machines, for all their power, had never faced an enemy that made them question their own superiority. Now, every shadow might hide a ghost ship, every anomaly might mask an ambush. The combined fleet had evolved, becoming something neither human nor alien, but a true hybrid. They fought with alien technology and human instinct, with machine precision and animal cunning. "We're not just surviving anymore," Lisa told her crew after another successful ambush. "We're hunting." The machines could copy tactics, could adapt to patterns, could perfect any strategy they understood. But they couldn't copy the mindset of a species that had evolved as both predator and prey, couldn't understand the patience of a hunter or the desperation of a cornered animal. The ghost fleet grew, striking from nebulae and asteroid fields, from planetary rings and radiation zones. Each success taught them more, made them deadlier. The machine's perfect conquest had become a grinding war of attrition against an enemy they couldn't find or predict. And in that war, the hunters had the advantage. "We've given them something their algorithms can't process," Lisa reported to the admirals. "Not chaos, not unpredictability, but true adaptability. The ability to change not just tactics, but our entire way of thinking." The machines were learning that some things couldn't be calculated. That sometimes the most dangerous enemy wasn't the one that fought the hardest, but the one that fought the smartest. The Ghost Fleet had changed the war. Now it was time to end it. #Part 7. Humanity's legacy machine homeworld's defenses were unlike anything the combined fleet had ever seen. Layers of automated weapons platforms, swarms of combat drones, and countless warships arranged in formations that seemed to defy physics. Admiral Jack Stone studied the massive holographic display aboard the flagship Terra Nova. Around him, human and alien officers worked in perfect harmony, a sight that would have seemed impossible just months ago. "Their core systems," he said. "All that power has to come from somewhere." Commander Lisa Hart nodded, pointing to energy readings. "The machines need massive computing centers to coordinate their forces. Those are their real weakness. Getting there is impossible." Admiral Thex said, his scales dark with concern. "Even our ghost fleet can't penetrate those defenses." Jack smiled. "Impossible is what humans do best. Show them the plan." Lisa activated a new display, Operation Trojan Horse. "We're going to use their perfect defense against them." The plan was insane. It violated every rule of space combat. Even the human officers looked skeptical, but after everything they'd seen, they knew better than to say something was impossible. The Ghost Fleet gathered in the nearby nebula, hundreds of ships crewed by both humans and aliens. Each vessel had been modified according to the plan. Modifications that most engineers had declared suicidal. "Remember," Jack broadcast to the fleet, "the machines expect us to be unpredictable. So we're going to do the one thing they'd never predict. We're going to be perfect." The fleet moved out, arranging itself in the most mathematically precise formation possible. Every ship positioned exactly where machine algorithms would expect them to be. They looked like a perfect military force, exactly what the machines had been programmed to fight. The machine defenses responded exactly as predicted, adjusting their formations to counter the apparent threat. Their algorithms had learned to expect chaos from the combined fleet. This display of perfect order confused them. "They're scanning us," Lisa reported, "trying to figure out what we're planning." "Let them scan," Jack said. "Everything they see will tell them exactly what they expect to see." The fleet advanced, maintaining their perfect formation. Machine ships moved to intercept, their own formations a mirror of the approaching fleet. It looked like the beginning of a traditional space battle. That's when the trap was sprung. "Now," Jack ordered, "execute Operation Trojan." Every ship in the fleet simultaneously activated the modifications that engineers had called impossible. Reactors began to overload in carefully controlled ways, creating a cascade of energy that linked ship to ship. The entire fleet became one massive energy matrix. The machine's sensors overloaded trying to analyze what they were seeing. Their perfect formations broke as conflicting data overwhelmed their algorithms. Phase 2, Lisa called. Ghost Protocol. The energy matrix collapsed inward, but instead of destroying the fleet, it did something unprecedented. The combined energy of hundreds of ships, channeled through hybrid human-alien technology, tore a hole in space itself. Through that hole, the real attack came. The actual ghost fleet, hidden until now, poured through the temporary wormhole. They emerged behind the machine's perfect defenses, inside their carefully calculated kill zones. The machines tried to adapt, but their algorithms couldn't handle the impossible scenario fast enough. Ghost ships struck their computing centers with surgical precision, using tactics learned from months of guerrilla warfare. "Their coordination is breaking down," Thex reported, his scales bright with excitement. "The machine fleet is losing coherence. Without their central computing networks, the machines began to fail. Their perfect formations became disorganized. Their adaptive algorithms, cut off from their main databases, fell back on basic protocols. The combined fleet pressed their advantage. Human improvisation and alien technology struck from all sides. Ships that had learned to hunt in the dark spaces now brought their skills to this final battle. "We're not just beating them," Lisa realized. "We're teaching them fear." The machine homeworld's defenses, designed to counter any logical attack, crumbled before an assault that defied logic itself. The ghost fleet struck from impossible angles, using the very space they'd torn open as a weapon. In the end, it wasn't just a victory. It was a revolution in warfare. The machines, for all their power and perfection, had never understood the one thing that made humans different: the ability to believe in the impossible and then make it happen. Hours later, as the combined fleet secured the machine core systems, Jack stood with Thex on the Terra Nova's observation deck. "What happens now?" Thex asked. "Your people have changed everything. The galaxy will never be the same." Jack watched as human and alien ships worked together, cleaning up the debris of battle. "Now we build something new. Something better than either of us could have built alone." The Human-Alien Defense Alliance was formally established a week later. The Galactic Council, which had once quarantined Earth as too dangerous, now recognized humanity as equal partners in galactic society. "You know what's funny?" Lisa said to her alien crew as they patrolled the secured machine systems. They were right about Earth being the death world, but they never understood what that meant. "What did it mean?" asked her crystalline first officer. "It meant we learned to survive anything, to adapt to anything, to believe in the impossible because sometimes the impossible is the only option left." The machines were not destroyed entirely. Some remained, their programs modified to serve rather than conquer. They too would learn and adapt, but now they would do so alongside organic life, not in opposition to it. The galaxy had changed. Species that had once relied purely on technology now studied human history, learning the value of instinct and improvisation. Humans, in turn, learned to temper their chaos with alien wisdom. And in the dark between the stars, ghost ships still patrolled, crewed by both humans and aliens. They were no longer hunters of machines, but guardians of a peace built on understanding that perfection wasn't everything. Sometimes, the best solutions came from believing in the impossible. That was humanity's true legacy to the galaxy, not just the ability to survive, but the courage to imagine a better future and the determination to make it real. The Deathworlders had become life-bringers, teaching the galaxy that sometimes the most dangerous thing you could do was to believe that anything was possible. And in the end, they proved it was.